Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon, and you're very welcome to a podcast which is all about the Irish League. And as the January transfer window begins to shorten, a main domino has potentially fallen. Scottish striker Kieran Offord has ended his very successful loan spell with Crusaders from St Mirren, but will he be away from the league for long? Crews, they claim victory in their last game with him in the lineup to heap more misery onto Coleraine. Portadown shoot themselves in the foot numerous times to set Linfield on their way, and Glenavon best the Swifts in an absolute stunner of a game. Great week to be chatting Irish League on your latest edition of Kicking Match. My guest this week is a man who, if he had floodlights, which he doesn't, he would always make sure that they're working at the opportune time. It's media man Dave Watt.
How are we?
I'm doing well. I see a smirk on your face. Don't give me that. Come on. It's not like your Mornview Park has been the most reliable for football games recently.
Unfortunately, no. However, if you speak to our groundsman, there's genuinely good reason for certain games not to be played.
He was trying the concentric circles technique, and it didn't work counterclockwise. The sun was in the wrong part of the sky. All these witchy things.
Something like that. I think at one point he ran out of petrol for his lawnmower as well. So, the grass was too long. Maybe there was nettles. Who knows?
There's no nettles in Mornview Park. I know that. Groundsman of yours is very particular and lovely surface. He usually does have. Like you can't be said about every single ground across the league. That is one of the more weirder quirks of Irish League football. We've had Storm Dara Gate, or was the amber weather warning Storm Dara? Whatever it was, we had that weekend, which will live long in the memory. We've had plenty of frozen pitches and waterlogged pitches, and we've had the time that your club decided to get a load of cars on the pitch to make sure a game that you lost went ahead.
You see, since then we've taken the decision that not to do that. If there's any doubt whatsoever, we'll call the pitch inspection as normal. We'll do our best, and if it doesn't work, well, wasn't meant to be.
I don't know if Portadown still have their flamethrower still. That was kind of a funny one. I will never forget being stationed up there ahead of, I think it was against Ballymena that game, maybe, I don't know. But I was just looking in front of me with my headset, talking to my producer, going, there's a flamethrower on the pitch here. What's going on here?
Yeah, I remember Davey actually saying he'd been offered it for a game, sort of tongue in cheek, and he politely turned it down.
Yeah, plenty of hot air in Lurgan anyway. You don't need a big old petrol powered flamethrower to sort that out. But the quirks of this Saturday afternoon, turning around to other people and saying, that Glentoran Larne game, that's off due to a floodlight issue. And it's something that's happened in East Belfast actually quite recently over the past few seasons with Dundela. But Big Boy Oval not working. I appreciate it. It was probably a comedy of errors that all came together. Well, not particularly funny comedy of errors, but a collection of issues all coalesced into one big mega issue, which meant the game was called off. But it will live long in the memory, like all the others we just recounted.
Visiting supporters over the years definitely enjoy taking the mick out of Glentoran fans for the state of their ground, and I think there are a lot of Glentoran fans at times are probably embarrassed as well. But I think probably more for Larne's sake. Where are they gonna fit that in?
Of all the teams Larne had to deal with another game, I'm sure there was fans and directors and everybody with Little Boat on their chest that afternoon thinking, this is the last thing we need.
Yeah, because I'm not even sure how they're going to fit all their fixtures in. I think they must be playing Saturday, Tuesday, or in their case Friday, Tuesday, between now and the split. Nearly every week.
Well, they better not be coming after a certain Friday that's circled in my diary, and I know it's circled in plenty of people's diary. That is 2 months from the day this podcast is released. 8 weeks it is now until it all goes down. I'm talking about 21st of March. Kicking Match Live, the very first live show that this old podcast has produced. It's going to be a one-off. You're going to have to be in the room to hear it and see the full thing in full flow. It is January where all these teams are trying to get some of these transfers across the line. I'm so close to getting all my I's dotted, my T's crossed to announce the first guest. But if you have not locked in your spot, now is a good time to do it, as we're well past the 50% sold mark, and it's upstairs in Poggoglies in Belfast. It ain't the Ulster Hall, so don't be crying to me in a couple of weeks if you haven't secured it. So don't be sorry. Don't be left waiting. Now's the time to grab yourself a little ticket. Just go to, I would recommend the Kicking Match Twitter feed, as it's a very easy way to just click in the bio, straight to Eventbrite. I'm looking after all the tickets. And if you're hemming in hand thinking, should I go by myself? I've had loads of single tickets being sold. So if you're going on your Todd, trust me, you will find a mate, because there is plenty in exactly the same position. Forget about that. That's going down in March, because if you've got it, you're sorted, you're happy, you're grand. A game which we'll not be able to spend too much time to talk about, which I'm sure is important to the fans of teams that are involved. Oh, look, it's the game that should have been played on Saturday, but we only got 45, or was it 55, 60 minutes of Larne and Glentoran face off again, counter Antrim Shield at Seaview. So fingers and toes and everything else crossed, that goes ahead.
Yeah, I think somebody has suggested that they should play double or quits, 3 points and the and the winners go through. Just because, again,
winner takes all.
Would Larne actually, would they take that? Possibly.
Well, there is that little mini deadline. Like, we joke about this whole, Larne going to be playing in the morning, in the afternoon. There is that deadline, like that 21st, of March is what as a date I picked, one because the room was available, but because it was kind of the final week before, I think it might be the semi-finals of the Irish Cup and then the split. So there's a sweat on here for Larne to make sure they get these games done before the split. I appreciate there has been some sort of leverage being given previously, or dispensation is perhaps the official footballing term, where we're like, look, you can play this game in the middle of it. It won't affect too much the way that things are going. But they are going to have to get a wiggle on, aren't they? And we'll see how it all comes together. The first thing on their list of things that Larne would like to do, I imagine at the start of the season, to keep up a bit of continuity, was to go for history, to go for, is it a 5th in a row they're looking to win?
Is it? Yeah.
Are you not a big believer in these regional competitions, Mr. Watt?
Under Gary Hamilton, we did quite well in the Ulster Cup. Then towards the end, we sort of, petered off a wee bit, and we haven't really done too well in more recent seasons. We haven't really done too well in more recent seasons in general, but maybe that sort of...
It's fair to say the County Antrim Shield has a bit more history behind it. It's a lot higher on that mega chart of all the cup competitions that you'd see in Football Manager, where it ranks the County Antrim Shield is 3080th, and then just below that is the Malton B division, the Cypriot Cup or whatever. So I would say County Antrim Shield, decent amount of kudos, mainly because teams that play it. The little thing I do have that frustrates me about the regional cups is, I don't know, there's a red card that goes against the team that you're going to play against next Saturday, thinking, yes, that player's not going to play, and then all of a sudden they're playing against Knocknamuckley Rovers, and then on Saturday you're like, oh wait, that clock's off, that suspension. Shakes fist in air.
Yeah, it is kind of funny, because ironically, in a lot of the regional cup competitions, that player would not necessarily have played anyway, which sort of makes it a little bit farcical. I do like the regional cup competitions, because it allows you to see, certainly from our perspective in Middlesbrough, it allows you to see some of the lower division teams in person, rather than just hear about them from or follow them from a distance. You actually get to see them play. Regarding the County Antrim Shield, yeah, it probably is the biggest of them all. I still think if you offered Larne, Glentoran, Linfield, Cliftonville, Crusaders, any of those a chance to progress and win even the League Cup rather than the County Antrim Shield, they'd probably choose that.
It will likely be, as I often say about Tuesday night games in this podcast, in the rear view mirror by the time a majority of you are listening to this. I imagine it was some sort of 1-1 0-0 that all went all the way to like 36 penalties each. Hard to tell. I think both teams would like to pocket that as they move on to the real business end, if we can get into that part of the season. A nice little win, a little boogie, but you're correct. You're talking about the League Cup, which has went up massively when it comes to reputation. It is really becoming a showpiece event, despite it not having that little dangling carrot of Europe. It's become a big event, and we'll talk about it. Couldn't talk about it last week in the podcast. We have our finalists. It's going to be a doozy. We might actually break the record for the most amount of people going to that final. They've been close recently with Linfield and Coleraine. I think it was slightly down for Portadown, Linfield, but Cliftonville, Glentoran, both sides, even the fact that Cliftonville did win, they got that monkey off their back, the Irish Cup, last term, their fans will be coming out in their droves. Ditto for Glentoran. They want to get a bit of proper silverware. Forget about if they're able to parlay the County Shield into this. That is a big final. Cliftonville getting a revenge on Larne last weekend, and Glentoran surviving a little tiny scare against Crusaders.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing, I suppose. I remember as a fan of English football, Premiership football, back in the day, that the Coca-Cola Cup or the Carling Cup or whatever it was, people didn't really take it seriously until the big clubs came in and saw it as a chance of, for their first opportunity to win a trophy. Here, similarly, a lot of the clubs are looking at it going, well, if Larne and Linfield are going to really be competing at the top for the Premiership, and the Irish Cup is also quite competitive, and those teams want to do well in that. Well, teams will then go and target the League Cup maybe as an opportunity, simply because those bigger teams will potentially play lesser or weakened squads. Weakened for them, as there's quite a few of the players in those teams that a lot of the league would love to have in their sides. At the end of the day, cup football's cup football. You play what's in front of you, you beat them, you're through to the next round. Glentoran are certainly building a little bit of momentum. They seem to have a little bit more, dare I say it, they're a bit more settled, I think, under Declan Devine.
It's a word I didn't think I would use about Glentoran this season, and it's definitely not one I've used in recent seasons. Stability?
Yeah, that's what I mean. They seem to have that. And when you look at Declan Devine on the sideline, he's not a stable character when he's there and he's passionate and in the moment. But they seem to be a little bit more calculated, a little bit more calm, deliberate, not as emotional at times as they have been, and that's probably been their undoing. Is they get caught up in playing the occasion, if you like, rather than playing the game that's in front of them. This season, I mean, he's got Jordan Jenkins finally scoring goals. We always knew there was a goal scorer in there. He did it when he was at Glenavon, when he was younger, for a season or two, when he was coming through. But he sort of lost his way a wee bit, found it a bit again at Dundela. But now he's sort of spearheading that Glentoran revival. And it wouldn't surprise me if they go on and win it, simply because I think, yes, Cliftonville have got to the final, but I do think that they are major underdogs going into that final.
Hugely, I agree. The Glentoran side just have that more stockier base, and while they perhaps don't have the real attacking spark or flair that maybe some of the top sides in seasons gone by have had, it's not like Cliftonville have that as we currently speak. So maybe Cliftonville will rise to the occasion as they did in the Irish Cup. But look, we will spend time talking about that down the road. Big semi-finals last week, and those are the two teams that win out. While we're on the topic of attacking flair, perhaps outside of all the whispers and paper talk about Joel Cooper, which perhaps still remains the biggest January transfer window chat about a transfer that hasn't actually officially went through or has been confirmed by anybody. Kieran Offord, props to Michael Clark, getting out with it first on social media. He's been recalled by St Mirren. This story could have shifted and moved by the time that you are listening to this, but what a breakout star he has been within the league. Came to Crusaders on loan, 20-year-old, and has been such an exciting starlet to see. He's been off the boil during periods, but when he's on it, he looks like such a fierce attacking threat. His time in the red and black of Crusaders is now over, at least in the format that it was before. In loan, he's been recalled by St Mirren, and that's got everybody a chit-chattering. What is going to happen with our boy Kieran Offord? The stats are incredible when it comes to what he did for the Crews. He scored 10 goals in 30 games. I'm going to give a bit of love to RC Stats Man, talking about how 6 of the 10 goals were match winners by Offord for Crusaders. That's how vital he's been. And every time he scored or assisted in the league, Crusaders have not lost. So you talk about a vital player. So before we get into where could he be going next, it's always the risk when you bring in players on loan. They're never going to be yours until you try and make things happen. And the way this goes, it's almost like he's overperformed what they were hoping for, and he's been so good. He's been called away, and we'll see what happens. But look, it was always going to be transition season for Crusaders. We've harped on about it a fair bit, but as we look ahead to the final bit of the runway for Crusaders season, this is as big a blow, and they've had plenty of injuries and players leaving and all the rest. This is as big a blow as you could probably give to their starting 11 as we speak.
He's been vital for any success that they've had this season. I mean, the stats you just said, they're absolutely unbelievable. And even his play outside of that, where he's been indirectly involved in some of the goals that Crusaders scored, where people are that worried about him that he leaves space for the other players to break through and to score, create chances, whatever. We beat Crusaders about just before Christmas there, and he didn't play, and it was evident that they were lost without him. So it will be interesting now that he's, well, for now anyway, not in the red and black. But it'll also then be interesting to see where they go from here, because I think they were banking on keeping him for at least a season and then going from there. But as you say, that's the risk you take when you bring somebody in on loan. You know, you think, oh, they'll improve us and they'll do well. But then, as you say, they go and become the starlet, maybe, of the season so far. And I remember a couple of seasons ago, we had Micheál Glynn on loan from Derry City.
Very similar to this, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and he was vital for us, albeit different position, still created and scored goals. And he got to January and he got recalled and ended up signing for Larne. You know, as you say, that's the risk, unless you somehow manage to pull a wonderstroke and get it that he can't be recalled, which is very unlikely to happen. The question, though, as you say, is where is he going to end up? And I know there's no end of suitors, both here in Scotland, lower leagues in England, even League of Ireland.
The boy is 20 years old and has an eye for goal. He is an out-and-out striker, something that feels like a bit of an endangered species in recent times, especially at this level. He is truly a player where I've seen teams have to very vociferously man mark, sometimes double up on him, because he's not a diminutive player at all. I wouldn't say he's a big man mountain of a man either, but he can kind of do it all. Might not have lightning pace, but he has a bit of zip to his ground game. He can score headers, he can score nip and tuck goals in the box. He has a fairly rapid oil boot on him as well, and you would expect that he is only going to improve. This is the outlet for him at this level at 20. He's a type of talent that you would think that this league would only be some form of stopping off point, just a step on the ladder. Now, he's been recalled by St Mirren, and it doesn't look, based on any kind of reporting that I've seen or even fan interaction, suggesting that he is someone that St Mirren would like to bring in now or try out. That could also change. It's obviously one of the options. I talked about it on Twitter. There is a lot of rumours about Irish League clubs looking to bring him in. Of course, he's one of the top strikers as we now speak, as I've said. It has been strongly suggested to me that there is a deal on the table. I'm not going to report that I know anything bar someone suggesting that to me. I've heard very similar talk in regards Glentoran as well. You can't discount anything that can be said about. I know Lauren, it had been suggested to me that Lauren more liked the look of him earlier on in the season. Coleraine is a wild card, as we've spoken about. Could be put a sticker on him for any player because they're just in that kind of mode. But if he was to sign permanently with any Irish League club, you must say what a talent they will have secured. He feels like a keystone to any side in this division. Like, you talk about franchise players, he really could be one. The only problem is, if he keeps up what he's doing right now, he won't be an Irish League player for many more seasons beyond this or next, really.
No, he won't. And to an extent, I would be a bit surprised if he did sign permanently for an Irish League club if there was another club in for him. We know that obviously with Tyrone and Lynch haven't been at Larne, he'll have seen him play there. Lawrence or Derry said he seemed to be getting the checkbook out. Like, there's no, there's no tomorrow.
The only problem is with that is that he's not a Northern Ireland international.
Yes, that is true, yeah. And they only seem to be signing Northern Ireland internationals. Certainly at the minute, anyway. Whoever gets him, we all know what they're getting. He's raw talent whose best years are ahead of him. He'll play maybe 2 more seasons at most before being picked up by somebody at a higher level, and go on to greater things, no doubt.
So, could it be another loan deal towards the end of the season? It's been wildly put online that he's out of contract come the end of the season. Again, there's kind of confusing matters about, yes, he'd be a free agent, but because of his age, development fees, yada, yada, yada. So it would not be as clean as just yoink, he's on a pre-contract with us. Maybe he has signed a pre-contract with a club, but if he was to, let's say, move to a team like Linfield, what a statement that would be. They've locked in Fitzpatrick for another 2 years. They still have McKee currently. Yes, they're going to lose Cooper, but especially if Cooper's going to continue until the end of the season as this second striker, as he's regularly been played, where Linfield are playing three at the back. That's a very nice role for Offord to lead your team for years to come. Like a proper... I appreciate we've had maybe Shane Lavery in the time, but there's certain hallmark, not exactly one for one, but there's a real touch of Waterworth in the way Offord plays. Just that hard running and succinct finishing.
At Irish League level, comparing somebody to Andy Waterworth is high praise, because we all know how good he's been within the league. Potentially he could be, yeah. But as I say, even if he does go, could be only for a couple of seasons. But, and the scary thing is, Linfield are 15 points clear right now. They have, as you say, got Fitzy for another couple of seasons. He's finally found his place in that team properly, I think, now. He struggled maybe at the start last season. They've worked out how to play with him. He's worked out how to play with them. They seem to have a system that works. If Offord goes there and fits into that, are they going to go and win the league by 20 points? And let's be honest, it's a very competitive league. The 12 teams that are in the league this season it's probably the strongest Irish Premiership season there's been for a good number of years.
It's certainly massively competitive from 9 up to second.
Yeah, and then even those bottom 3 teams are still quite close as well. So, well, Loughgall maybe are getting cut adrift a little bit more, but that league is as competitive as it's been. But for Linfield to be where they are, adding somebody like Offord to that into the mix, that's, to quote a former slash current slash we're not really sure Glentoran manager, that's frightening.
It's such a statement signing. It's a signing that Linfield used to do window after window, and they, if they were able to secure it, they're securing it this January. Either saying he's coming in at the season or he's coming in now. It's you're coming at the moment where they look the strongest. As I've said, there's been lots of clubs being thrown about. I don't know. It's been strongly indicated Linfield could be a destination for him. Belfast Telegraph reporting as we record that they claim, based on Stephen Beacome's reporting, that Glentoran are ready to spend. Now, I will get you to suggest what you think the amount of money is. What is a 20-year-old Kieran Offord, having scored 10 goals, one goal in every 3 games? What is he in Irish League 2025?
Well, it depends on who's buying them.
So Glentoran are reportedly interested in putting together a package that could rise above 100 grand, which is such a triggering amount in Irish League circles, isn't it? It's either one Shea McCartan or one Lee Bonus.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, you look at the players that have gone for the different amounts of money over the last 5 6 years. You look at the likes of Jim McGonigal, who went and then came back. You look at likes of Shea McCartan, who went for big money and he's now playing at Portadown. You look at the likes of Lee Bonus, who went for big money and then went and kicked on. Just because somebody goes for big money, it doesn't matter what league you're in, it doesn't automatically guarantee A, the success of the club they go to, or B, that they're going to go on and have bigger and better things, either with that club or elsewhere. So I think, like, as I said, whoever gets Kieran Offord will be, we all know they're getting a smashing player for the amount. I mean, if Shea McCartan's with 100 grand and Kieran Offord's with 100 grand, that's because McCartan was that influential for the likes of Ballymena, and he showed glimpses of it at Glentoran, and he has shown a wee bit at Portadown. But I think Offord's even better.
Would that be seen as an erratic amount of money to pitch in £100,000, 6 figures, for a player who has only sparked off in, let's say, 4 or 5 months of Irish League football? Or is that the going rate for potential and potentially sell on ability?
Potentially. But maybe St Mirren might give them a 100 quid to put in the meter so they can get their floodlights on again. Who knows? No, I think in all seriousness, the better players in the league do command big fees. 100 grand doesn't seem unreasonable for a player like Offord. But the other side of it is he's only played half a season in the Irish League. That is, when you look at it from that perspective, you go, well, could he turn out to be a one season wonder and then flop? Unlikely, but possible.
We'll chat about the game that he was actually involved in. I had a good old week for predictions based on what I said at the end of last week's podcast. I had a feeling, I had a notion, despite their break away from football and Crusaders' per set of results, little run they've been on has not been good. It's the men from North Belfast that take the 3 points back down the road from the Coleraine showgrounds. Coleraine had their chances, they went close, they hit the post, but it's Crusaders who are able to win out and survive, and that's a bit of a killer blow. Fans are getting slightly restless despite all the rumours and even nailing such a big transfer like Ronan Doherty up to the club. Results matter on the pitch and they are still not getting them.
watching the highlights, I don't know what more Coleraine could have done to even get one goal. They it was a fairly, it looked like a fairly open game. Crusaders took the chances when they got them, and then Coleraine didn't. Having spoken to those that I know around Coleraine, they are optimistic, but also a little bit worried that things are not going to work out. What's going on with their, the relationship with the council, and do they have a safety certificate? Is that sort of, just wee things like that that should have been probably. I say it's quite important that you have a ground that you can play at that's safe. At the same time, stuff like that that is administrative, you would expect to be taken care of. And then on the pitch, they at times are not looking like they're gonna go anywhere. They seem to be stagnating a little bit, and then they'll go and score a hatful, or they'll then go and get beat. They're very erratic, and I think even earlier in the season, I know I joked earlier about Nettles and stuff like that. So when you make a suggestion like that as a manager on a pitch, you sort of going like, I cringed at that. I think sometimes that even as a player, you can hear your manager say something like that, and you go, what is he on about? And then does that then feed throughout the rest of the squad? Things don't go your way. You don't win the games you should. You let a 2-goal lead slip here, or you get turned over there, or like Saturday, you have a handful of chances and don't score any.
It's a set piece which lets them down for that first goal. That has been something which defending in particular for Coleraine has not been up to a high enough standard at this term, and fans will tell you that. And basing this just on a lot of online discourse, I asked this question last week about Jim Irvine and Ballymena. I appreciate you're not a Coleraine fan. I've reached out to some to see what they think about it, but based on the results, based on what fan expectation was at the start of the season, before all this extra money that's being talked about and all these glamour signings were even on the horizon, is Dean Shiels under a bit of pressure now? 10 games to go until the split, and they're looking up, and they can claw it back, but they have work to do to try and get what was probably a minimum aim for a club like Coleraine at the start of the season.
I think Dean Shiels is potentially under massive pressure. I know that maybe sounding a bit of a strong statement to make, but I do, because Coleraine certainly in recent seasons have been nailed on for that sort of fifth, sixth spot. And now, obviously, this season, Ballymena had a surging run and they pushed into the top six. They were top of the league at one point, and Dungannon have massively overachieved by their, and I think everybody's expectations, certainly from the outside of the season. You can't concede goals in the manner that they've been conceding them, or in the volume they've been conceding them. The way they concede them, as far as losing a 2-goal lead, they're looking relatively comfortable in some games. I think back to the game that they came to Moorview Park and they were 3-1 up, and we could have won. If you played another 5-6 minutes, we could have gone and won that 4-3, and nobody would have been surprised.
You will be biased here just based on how well he's done, and you'll not want to see him go anywhere else. But there's been a few Coleraine fans who have said to me that they look back at that time where Paddy McLaughlin was available, not only last summer, but into, what was it, November, when he eventually signed on the dotted line at Moorview Park, and see his success and think that is a man that we have potentially missed the boat on. Well, they clearly have when it comes to just recent football. But let's look at what the future for Coleraine here is. They are only about 4 points away from top 6 placing. Losing to Crusaders doesn't really help. Such 4 points, that's a real jump up. They do have games in hand, but between now and the split, they've got this, pretty much games against Portadown at home could be very, very key for them. And if you look at teams that are probably on either side of that dotted line, Portadown and on Coleraine look like they will likely be linked. Swifts away, Cliftonville at home, Carrick away back to the Nettles, Glentoran at home, Portadown at home, Linfield away, Glenavon away, Larne away, and then Portadown again at home. So I do appreciate that this league, there's not really any games you're looking at as easy games, bar maybe Loch All, but those are all quite tough week to week on where they're going to get the points.
Yeah, there's not really a run of 3 or 4 games where you would go, you know what, if they can turn up, they'll pick up points consistently.
And even now they've got a game in hand on Portadown, but I say if Portadown have got those 2 games against each other, and who wins out there could be key on who secures the top 6 place. If you just said right now, right, Cohen, you get 6 points, you win both those games, they still wouldn't be above Portadown because Portadown have 7 points.
Yeah, and that's testament to the work that Niall Curry has done with his recruitment and with the players that he has at disposal at Portadown this season. But at the same time, as you say, Coleraine are sitting there in 9th place right now. Yes, had a game in hand on a couple of the teams around them, but I'm really not sure where they get a run going. They build that momentum, because going to Dungannon, it definitely isn't an easy place to go. It's not an easy team to play against. Cliftonville,
And broadly, I do think the Swifts have done well against Coleraine this year.
yeah,
They're not a good matchup.
no, Coleraine seem to be a bit porous, and if teams that play football can play through them, and Dungannon, I think, have been hands down the best footballing team in the league this season.
Here, here.
I don't know, as I say, where that run that you would need to start really kicking on starts or ends.
It's just there's big games like Cliftonville in 2 weeks. If they lose that, 7 point swing, and that would be hard to overcome. Look, not finishing in the top 6. It is not relegation. It is not disaster, but it shows that a bad recent run, patchy form early on, is starting to come to roost to a certain extent, and a team that week to week you think you always think there's signs that they could push on. They haven't, and not doom and gloom totally, but you can feel the disquiet with plenty of Bandsider fans. They have a big chance to bounce back against Dungannon. Quickly, just on Crusaders, like I said, I did think they would sneak that win. They get it. They have played more games than anybody else in the league. 25 games played. Them, Loch and Dungannon have all played that many. They're 6th. As we look at the table, it's very likely Larne will jump over them due to the fact that they have 7 games on them and 2 points to claw back. So, it's a good win. As we said, Offord may see there the lack of Offord, unless he does come back, which we don't know. That we could see them fall away, and a team that has been missing Lecky pretty much the entire season. Stuart's been injured a fair bit. Maybe their time to slip away. It may be a meeker end of the season than Cruise fans would like, especially with them not being able to get that semi-final across the line against Glentoran. Let's talk about your boys. I thought it was going to be a thriller. It was. I've heard people talk about it as one of the best games they've seen this season. Glentoran, Glenavon look to be the real deal. This is your coming out moment, I think, for Paddy McLaughlin, this Paddy McLaughlin era. 3-2 against the Swifts. I'm sure your heart was beating pretty fast on Friday night.
I'll be honest with you, no.
You liar.
Because honestly, no. Because I did have to check myself a couple of times and went, why am I not feeling concerned and worried here? It was so strange, because right from the get-go, we were in the game. We got on the ball. We played a lot of good football. We were aggressive. The intensity was there that maybe has been lacking, certainly in the last couple of seasons. It was really good to watch. And as I say, I didn't. Now, when they got a penalty they got a penalty in the first minute of the second half, which I think most people will say it wasn't a penalty. Even the Swiss players couldn't believe their luck. But you're 2-0 at half time thinking, brilliant, keep it tight for 15 minutes, will be all right. And then all of a sudden, within 15 minutes, you're thinking, so, you go, oh, well, here we go again. Um, Back to 2-2. And previously, we would have capitulated and potentially lost 4 or 5 at that point because the heads would have dropped. But it was evident that the fight was there, that there was a plan in place. There was, as I say, that intensity was there, and the belief then to go on and win. So it was, and then seeing Jack Malone score those 2 goals and almost get a third, whereas volley went just wide. He's been a real linchpin of our midfield since he's been there, and I think how he and Peter Campbell play generally will dictate like a barometer, if you like, of how we're going to play.
Up until that game, there was a great stat about Peter Campbell. He was pretty much a part of every goal
Yes,
in some way, scoring or assisting up until that game. Perhaps not every single one, but was
all but one. I think it was up until maybe the previous game there. Yeah,
Paddy McLaughlin almost seems like one of those people on the repair shop. It's like the board of Glenavon were like, we've got this team that we think should be a bit better, has seen better days, and because we're not sitting here with, well, McLaughlin's brought in player X and player Y and he's shored this up. It's pretty much the same nuts and bolts, and he's shined them up, give them a lick of paint, reinforced some areas, and has been able to get a completely different looking side to play football for Glenavon. Like maybe they just needed to settle in, but O'Connor and McDaid look a completely different pairing up top, and the confidence is running through that team. The form is going completely under the radar. McLaughlin's time, I know you know this, he lost to Portadown in a tight little game in his first match, and since then 3-3 against Coleraine, beat the Crews. Yes, they lose to Linfield, only 1-0 away to Windsor Park. Beat the Ports on Boxing Day, beat Ballymena. They beat the in-form hot Dungannon Swifts. They went out against Dundela. These are all good things, and you look at the league and all of a sudden you are a lot closer than teams probably would have thought maybe only weeks ago.
it's been a massive turnaround, and I mean, it was suggested to me in sort of like this. Under Gary Hamilton, we had a very direct, very robust, physical style of play that maybe, unfortunately, towards the end, we didn't have the players to fulfill that, and that's possibly why it didn't work out in the end for Gary. The season a bit under Stevie, it was more about finesse, and I think maybe we lost some of that physicality and that intensity at times. And then under Paddy, there seems to be a better balance between those two styles. Where yes, we play football, but we've also got to make sure that we're not bullied out of games the way maybe we were in the last couple of seasons. So that's, I think, I mean, the extra night training has kind of helped with that because it allows him more time to be with the players. But I think a lot of credit not only has to go to him, but to Coetzee and to Marty McCann as well that he's brought in. Those two guys, I've seen them at training a couple of times, and some of the stuff that they're doing, the way they interact with the players, the way they just come in, roll their sleeves up and get stuck in, has been admirable. It genuinely seems to be all hands to the pump, and what they're doing is working.
They look like just such a different team mentality wise. Like, I want to say it's not even like a shape thing. It's just how they play the game. It's just have this fortitude that was not there, and it's really going well. And whisper quietly, but you keep up this run, You're only 2 points behind Coleraine, six away from Crews and Cliftonville, who are fifth and sixth. So it it would be some massive achievement, but everything looks good. Everything's looking really, really good for Glenavon, and any fears, I'll say it for you, any fears of relegation look to be all but extinguished. There is a few embers, but this looks like a properly solid team that across the games that you will play, that you should be able to get yourself out. Maybe a few more games, and you'll be able to wipe that sweat off your brow. Not that you're panicked at 2-2, you're not even worried about it. Again, it's a great team like Dungannon. I've said loads about Dungannon in recent weeks. I think Roddy McAree, after the game, pretty much nailed it. They don't usually lose at home. They've been on a really good run. It just wasn't their evening, and it's an off day broadly for the Swifts. They weren't massively poor, but they still let in 3 goals.
The first half, we were a lot better than they were, but they came out second half. Rodney had a word, obviously, and they were a completely different team. They were back to the team that, as you say, is deservedly sitting second in the league. And you could see at that point why they're sitting where they are. Leo Alves is an absolutely outstanding footballer, and he just plays with such freedom, and just the way he has a burst of pace when he needs it, has that nice wee intricate passing that he can, he'll find a, could lose his man in a phone box, could find a pass in the tightest of scenarios. And then you have the likes of John McGovern, who I think people are talking about, the likes of Kieran Offord and other players as well. But I think in terms of centre forwards in this league, John McGovern, if he keeps going the way he's going, will have a long career in the Irish League. Whether he can step up beyond that remains to be seen. But I do think he does a lot of the hard work as a centre forward on his own up there, and it doesn't go recognised maybe enough.
We talk about how one manager coming in mid-season has had an influence on a club. We've seen the difference that Stephen Baxter has made on to Carrick. He's made them hard to score against. However, that also has come with them struggling to score themselves. You heard Michael Clark on the radio describing this as a painful watch. I mean, when it comes to highlights, this was not the strongest game of football that has been played in this country.
No, I think we all joke about the whole watching paint dry and all that. Yeah, it might have been better painting your fence.
Like, Carrick have not scored in the league since November. Like, they go the entirety of December without scoring or conceding a goal, and then they get beat 3-0 by Linfield, and it's 0-0. Back to the regularly scheduled programming there on Saturday.
But there was that thriller 4-3 against Newry in the cup.
And I was there, and I lost my mind as much as everybody else did. But that seems to be a total anomaly. And all it tells me that strap in your seatbelts if Carrick are in that playoff, because it could be a bonkers set of 90-minute games. It's doing them good because they're slipping up the table, and they're getting away from lock all. But I'm starting to feel a tiny bit of the air in the. You could probably just say this for both Ballymena and Carrick for different reasons, but the air in the balloon is just slipping out of both these teams' seasons.
Yeah, I was gutted for Sturdy King when he lost his job, but in a similar way, it was probably the right decision when we got rid of Stevie. It's worked out, and I know it hasn't been pretty to watch. And with the forwards that Carrick have, they probably should be scoring more goals, but they were also conceding far too many. I mean, especially with the defensive quality that they should and now obviously do possess. I think, yeah, that they are where they are for the reasons that we've discussed there. They're yes, they're not conceding, but they're not scoring. Having said that, because we play them on Saturday, they'll probably go and score four. um, no, it's unlikely. But as I say, it sort of seems to be a little bit. You're sort of going, well, Paul Heatley has scored for fun in this league. Danny Gibson has scored quite a few goals even this season. Ninas Makalaitis, again, good goal scorer. They have that attacking ability there.
But to stay tight at the back, their chances are limited, and so far they are not getting the rub of the green on these occasions, unless what they had to do against Newry, go chase the game because they're 2-0 down.
Yeah, and maybe because, ironically, because they haven't been conceding, they haven't been forced into that attacking play. But again, Ballymena at one point were sitting top of the league, and now they're eighth.
Yeah, they are sliding like a stone, and it's not been that sudden either. Slightly missed opportunity for Carrick in that there's 10 points between them and Ballymena, and you wonder if they are still, and they of course they will be looking at getting out of 11th and trying to claw somebody back into 10th. It may have sounded daft if we were talking about this in November, but Ballymena could, maybe still are, a team that could occupy that space. They are struggling to get out of this funk that they are royally in. They could have made that, was a 7 point difference. It would have been, or yeah, it would have been 7 points difference if Carrick were able to win there. So actually, it's not a bad result for Ballymena if you're looking at it in the negative perspective of not falling down. Uh, Jim Irvin says he still hopes to get one more big surprise signing in during January. We all know what part of the team Ballymena would like that player to play. And it would be very nice if there was a late January transfer surprise. And my goodness, would it be a surprise if the present sitting for them at Warden Street is a Kieran Offord sized present. I don't think it will be that, but something of that ilk would do, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think this season their fortunes have been very dependent on Ben Kennedy and his ability or um, mental attitude towards the game. Like, I think there was a couple of times, I think, and I use that phrase deliberately because I think there's times where he started the game well and they've gone and cruised the game, and there's another time where maybe he gets hit with an early tackle and he doesn't fancy it, or something happens, and you know teams sort of work them out a little bit. I know it was very easy to say, stop Ben Kennedy, stop Ballymena, but start of the season teams couldn't do it. So it's one thing is saying, another thing is doing. And I think eventually teams kind of got there. And for a long time it was don't give away penalties or corners. and once you kind of stop that, Ballymena kind of stopped dominating the games they were dominating, winning the games they were winning, and they haven't really picked up too many points in the last couple of months. Hence why they are where they are. Like I remember talking to a certain journalist when he was asking about Stephen McDonnell being under pressure and about how he reeled off some stats, and at that point it was 16 games played or something like that. And I went, well, if you look at it this way, Ballymena have actually lost the same number of games that we've lost. They've lost 50% of the games, so have we. Just happens that they had won the other 50%. You know what I mean? And that's how fine the margins are. Since then, though, they haven't really picked up too many points. And that's the thing. The games they were maybe winning, they're now drawing. And that's where, for Carrick, that seems to be working at the minute, as you say, to keep them away from Loughgall. But the other side is for Ballymena, that gets them, they're slipping further and further down the league as other teams around them are picking up the odd point here and there. And it is very tight, and one or two decent results will get you there. But my problem is looking at it, if I was a Ballymena fan, how do we get Ben Kennedy firing again? How do we get those this indifferent form over the last 5-6 games back to all green on the board, scoring goals again. I'm not sure.
I believe most other weeks, if there wasn't some sort of Kieran Offord size distraction, this probably would have been at top of the running order. But it was not. Portadown come out of the gates firing, and they give what you can only be described as a disaster class in how to start off a game against Linfield. A opening flurry which was filled with defensive mistakes. They're 2-0 down after 6 minutes. Uh, Joel Cooper completes his hat trick from a almost comedy of errors between was it McCary and Gary Thompson at the back, passing it out. Yeah, hat trick within 26 minutes. And what was bonkers about it, Portadown almost came back because Linfield sat off, but the potential, if we're talking about presidents elect this week, the champions elect almost Linfield get the 3 points. People had this game as maybe a tricky fixture for Linfield. Not if they're 3-0 up before the half hour mark.
No, I think like Joe Cooper is an unbelievable player, but he didn't really have to try too hard for those goals that he got on Saturday.
He didn't have to do a lot of work to get the ball in those positions. I thought he finished very well.
Yes, yes.
And it shows what you give him an inch, what he can grab. But he was
Absolutely.
given the positions in that box that he did not fully earn himself. It was a gift.
Yeah, I mean, he thought it was, Christmas had come 2 weeks late. It was absolutely scandalous. And I'm not sure what Aaron McCary was thinking, trying to throw the ball out on a bubbly pitch to Gary Thompson, 30 yards from goal, with, um, you know, with the entire Linfield team bearing down on him. It just made no sense. But as you say, Portadown doing what Portadown do, coming back late on, had the chances. Fortunately for Linfield, they didn't take them. But I mean, you're looking there. Linfield have a game in hand on Dungannon. If they win that, that's them 18 points clear. If that's ridiculous. I'm not sure I've seen that at this stage of the season in a very long time, if ever. And David Healy is well documented recently as saying, we're 15 points clear, we're X amount of points clear, whatever it is, and we're not playing well. People are saying we're not playing well. I don't think they are. They're not playing well, but then again, they're not having to play well necessarily. They're not playing wild, expansive football. They're playing Chris Shiels ball, Jamie Mulgrew ball, which is efficient, solid, combative, doing the basics right, picking the passes, making the tackles, and they're grinding out results. And then because of that fear of, well, we've got to be on top of our game to get anything from this, like you always used to have to be against Linfield. Teams are making mistakes and Linfield are walking through and getting the goals. So I think, yeah, they're 15 points clear, but no, they're not playing well. In that kind of, maybe we've been spoiling recent seasons with the likes of Larne playing all of the very expansive football, Linfield even themselves when they won the league a couple of seasons ago, playing good football. Cliftonville, when they won the cup, actually playing a lot of good football there. This season, Dungannon, as I said, being very much the standout footballing team in the league. Maybe we've come to expect that teams that win the league or that are leading the league should be, better on the eye, prettier to watch. But Linfield are going about that a different way this season.
It's almost because we don't have really a standout competitor. Larne have been this anonymous ghost throughout the league, and Linfield have only had one go at them. It feels like forever ago, and Larne were actually able to win it. So it's been a case of they lose to what would have been their main challenger and still probably is in Larne, and then the other team that looks the most impressive has been Glentoran, and Glentoran have had the better of Linfield. So it's it's the usual Linfield formula that we've seen in previous years, where even though they have not been champions, it's been a case of they have always steamrolled teams below them, and Saturday is a key example of that. Teams need to raise their game against this professional setup, and sometimes, yes, they come out of the traps and they try and shock Linfield, but also perhaps geeing these players up meant that they were making nervy mistakes. I think if you take the goals one by one, oftentimes it's just, hit the ball away as hard as you can, win that ball in the air. But it's amazing how, despite them not needing a whole lot of chances, how a player like Joel Cooper just needs inches time and time again. And yes, hardly a classic. You look back at the highlights, Portadown do get a goal back, and probably all the key chances were at that end. And the would have been a different game if Portadown had taken the lead, probably, but we've seen the real way to get at Linfield is to make sure that they don't take hold of the game, because they are very good at shutting it down. They sometimes slip up on those occasions, but they are looking so good. A get right game as our final matchup for Cliftonville. You feel that creek evermore coming for Loughgall, but a team that needed a win, they got it. And it's not the familiar names. Yes, Johnny Addis is well known, but it seemed to be more without Ronan Doherty, no Joe Gormley in the side, that they needed to rely on some new faces. And it's the league's worst side based on what we see in the table, but Clifton will get the job done at home. A bit of a base for them to build on, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. I felt a wee bit sorry for Loughgall because I don't think Cliftonville were particularly good on Saturday. And I thought Loughgall actually played quite well. You can play well and not win, and you can win and not play well. And I think that up until the first half, it was a fairly even game. Loughgall had a few good chances. Cliftonville were there or thereabouts. Obviously, it's, as the home side, you'd expect it to be on them to go out and really force the issue. And then they come out in the second half, and it's a fairly straightforward free kick routine. Johnny Addis gets across the front post, and all of a sudden, you're 1-0 down. And from there, Loughgall kind of didn't really, the heads dropped a wee bit, and they didn't come back into it. And then they lose a goal at the end when they're trying to push for an equaliser. I just think that's typical of how Loughgall's season has gone in many respects. Again, they played decent football, but they're just a little bit toothless at times. And I think that Cliftonville will be pleased that they got out of that with a 2-0 win.
It's a bit of a frustrating conversation I'm bringing up here if you are of the Loughgall persuasion, but I think it highlights how much better Loughgall is compared to some of the teams that have been in their position in recent seasons. If you look at the Newry side that went down, you're struggling. The Portadown side that went down as well. It's not like yes, there's some examples, but it's not like when they went down, there was a huge exodus of players that are being picked off, returning. They just were not good enough squads. I look at this Loughgall side and I think if they go down, plenty will stick around, but there is enough meat on the bones of this Loughgall side where plenty of teams will go, actually, what's the story with Jordan Gibson, Nathaniel Ferris, Tiernan Kelly, Jamie Ray, Gartside? I like Adam Toe, everyone knows this. Even maybe Lewis Francis. Like, there is Irish League quality in that side,
So.
that teams will be interested in.
Yeah, and that's what always makes it a little bit more difficult for Dean Shiels and his team and the club generally, because look at where Newry are in the championship, and there is a real danger that, well, I'll not say if, when Loughgall go down here, that they may potentially, unless they do really well to replace some of the team players that, as you say, will inevitably get picked off. that they could end up similarly placed to where Newry are, and possibly even worse after that. So this isn't just about how they go about. I know it sounds really strange, getting relegated well. Does that make sense?
Last season, I suggested that, and particularly near the end, that I think we've been proven right based on the way their season has gone with a lot of the same team, that Portadown, Bangor, Dundela, and Institute, all four of those sides were better teams than Newry. I don't think there's any team in that championship that you would say they're better.
Mm-hmm.
Even high flying Bangor, I think Loughgall are very much a better team than Bangor 1 to 11 right now. That may be very different come the start of the 25-26 season, but that just, it's another example of how Loughgall are very much the 12th best side in this country. But that doesn't keep you in the top division.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't. But I would also, I would agree with you, and it does. It's sad in a way because, as you say, there are a lot of good footballers in that team. Um, it just doesn't seem to work out for them unless they play Glenavon. They it just I feel for them because I've always had like a personally, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Loughgall. I've known a lot of people who've played for them over the years. The club generally is run quite well. As I said earlier, it's definitely the most competitive top flight there's been in a very long time. And I do think, like you're saying, the 12 teams there that are in the Premiership this season are better than the teams that are in the Championship. That doesn't, obviously, it's a poor, it's no consolation for Loughgall that they are better than the likes of a Bangor or Dundela or whoever. It doesn't keep them in the league.
We've got a rare 6 games Saturday, and we will start with the latest game that'll be played that day, as it's currently scheduled: Linfield, Cliftonville, Windsor Park. The issue here is Cliftonville's lack of firepower, isn't it? We'll do our best not to say the catchphrase that comes with Cliftonville on this podcast this season. But look, Destiny Ojo, what a great headline and story that was, getting the goal. But he's been a bit part player for them. That's actually probably over egging his contribution to that team this season. He's rarely featured because he's not been up to the standard they need to be, even despite the fact of them needing something up top there. You look at that game against Loughgall, there's no Gormley. Will he return? They have, it's great, I'm sure, if you're looking to the future of Cliftonville, to see Wilson, McGuinness, Markey, and even Aaron Pettifer, who a lot of people are hyping up in that midfield, starting, helping contributing to goals. But this is Linfield that they're going to, and a draw is maybe the best they can hope for. I don't see some sort of surprise here. I think this will be a maybe 2-1, 2-0 to the Blues.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I think Linfield have it at least 2-1 and 2-0 maybe. I just think it's more to do with what Linfield team shows up more than necessarily what Cliftonville team shows up, because
there is 20 points difference between these sides.
and it shows on the pitch. That's not a fluke this season. I think Cliftonville have lost a lot of big names, obviously, in close season and that. So, and they are very much in that kind of rebuilding season. Many fans would have thought that, win the cup, we can kick on. It hopefully will help us to improve our league position. And then they lost the players they did. And yes, they, as you said, they're bringing through a lot of the younger ones, but that doesn't really help them this season. And I think it's been a little bit of because of that stop start, as you say, Ojo is only now starting to show a little bit of what the promise was. So you never know, we might pop up with a game of his life on Saturday. But
I fully expect we go to the Saturday 3 p.m. games, Larne to beat Ballymena at Inver Park. I don't think that's what happened earlier on in the season, at least at Inver Park. So it'd be some turnaround for Ballymena. So it's likely based on my predictions that they're going to go uh, pound for pound, round for round there, whatever. If Linfield, because you've got a game on Saturday and then the game on Tuesday against the Crews, if they get 6 points from them, I know technically you and I have said it's over, but it's over if there's 6 points there. That puts them on 60 points. With 12 games still to be played. They're within touching distance.
yeah, and even if Larne win all of their games in hand, they're still about 6 points behind.
Well, Larne have, what is it?
6 games.
Is it? They've got 15 games to play between now and the end of
45 points.
March. And as you said, so like we are at the point where if there's 15 games to be played and there's 8 weeks, 8 to 9 weeks, like they are literally playing, and they're playing Tuesday in a cup competition. You know,
Yeah.
it's gonna be really really tight. We all know Lauren could go on this run, even if like we always every time we talk about how if you give Lauren wins for all the games that they have played, there would still be or haven't played. Sorry, is it? They would
4
still
points.
be 4 points off. They've still got to play each other at least twice. So, but I think you make that 60 points, it's all but done. In fact, we were almost saying that in December, weren't we? So
Yeah,
can
yeah. I mean,
we just say Lauren, or even with the striker woes, I think they'll slip by Ballymena at least with a victory there. If they
yeah,
don't, oh dear.
yeah. I know, no league winners medals are handed out in January, but I mean, I don't remember it being this obvious in a while. Um, yeah, Linfield look like as if they're gonna like, but when we said that at the start of the season that it would be more to do with how far ahead Linfield can get and set the standard, and it's proved that. I don't think I think Europe maybe has been a little bit more taxing on Larne than they would have imagined. Losing 10 innings didn't really help, and I'm not sure that they've kind of kicked on under Nathan Rooney slash Gary Haveron slash whatever setups there at the minute. But yeah, I would say 3-0 Larne.
I think that's very ambitious. I think it could be as tight as maybe one. I think there's a chance. I almost want to predict this 0-0, but I think Lauren might sneak a wee set piece or yeah, set piece, whatever, maybe corner or penalty or something that'll get them the victory at home. I'd be surprised if they're back to their cantering best. Local Glentoran, I was at this game before Christmas. That feels like the last time Glentoran really slipped up. It was 2-2, funny old game. Again, points left on the table by Local, funnily enough. I can't see that happening again. I would back Jenkins to get back firing here, unless of course he crocks himself in the Shield final. It's just hard to bet for Lockall in any way. Not that we're betting.
No, no. Unfortunately, I think you're right. I mean, unfortunately, from a local perspective, because they have done that a few times. They've left points out there, and they'll know that themselves. And with Glentoran getting into that kind of groove now, I would expect them to run out relatively comfortable in this one.
Okay, so I often talk about, can these teams break down this ice wall that is the Carrick Rangers back three, right? But, I actually think you're a team that are kind of built for this, because O'Connor and McDaid will take them on at their own game. I think O'Connor's doing all of the, I don't want to say the nasty parts. I just think the less flashy, even though they seem flashy to me, getting the ball down, winning the ball in the air, and I think you will create enough chances to win, setting up balls on a plate for Atherton or Malone, who's found his shooting boots, or of course Peter Campbell. I think this will be knockdown central, and you'll win out here 2-0.
Yeah, I'll take that now. I mean, I say my
Like, it was a crazy fixture earlier on in the season, wasn't it? Where Carrick were actually able to hold you off for a long period of time, down to 10 men for 45 minutes, and it's through a last minute grace of God from McDade, I think, he scored that you didn't end up losing that game.
yeah, we should have been
So
well out of sight in that game. We created enough chances and just didn't take them. But as you say, I mean, Michael O'Connor has been outstanding this season. I think he is even our start of the season. It took him a while to get going, but under Paddy McLaughlin, he has been absolutely phenomenal. We talk about defenders who love defending and that kind of, you know, uh, the ugly side of the game, that good, robust, physical challenge. Michael O'Connor, as a striker, loves that, relishes that, and in recent weeks has certainly won a lot more than he's lost. I was looking at the team coming down the road on Friday night and saw that Dean Curry was playing and thought, brilliant. That's exactly what Michael O'Connor wants to play against. And in Luke Wilson, Albert Watson, Cameron Stewart, Scherzer, whoever else plays in that Carrick back three, all of those are the sort of players that Michael O'Connor will love what to play against and tested himself against, because I think he's probably a bit more mobile. Yes, he's robust and strong, but he's more mobile than they are. He took a ball down on Friday night and then pinged it out to Peter Campbell on the left wing like prime Cristiano Ronaldo. It was it was outstanding, and I think on Saturday that will be a key for us. Is how well he performs. I would take 2-0, and I probably would agree with you. I think it will be.
we talked about it earlier. Swifts against Coleraine at Stagmore Park. Perhaps not the fortress it was, but this could be a bit of a ding-dong affair. If I'm looking at these fixtures and thinking which one has the chance to be the 2-2, the 3-3, the 4-4, the whatever, it's this one. And I'm going to say it's probably going to be 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it could be anything from, close to double figures to an attritional. It certainly won't be an attritional 0-0. That's for sure, because both teams love the attack. I think Swifts might just edge it, so it could be another, 3-2, 4-3, something like that. But they'll certainly be hurting from Friday, and I feel that they left a lot out there. Coleraine, likewise, as I said earlier, this season have left a lot um, on the pitch when it comes to results and points on the table. But I do think Dungannon probably will just about win that by the odd goal in maybe five or seven.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the 2-2 draw, but I don't. I think the result I expect the least is as a comfortable win for Coleraine. I think Dungannon will penetrate that back line and they'll get the goals at least to get something out of that game. It's just about if Coleraine can match them on that feat. Cruise Portadown at Seaview. I think maybe this was a part of that really bad run for Crusaders in October time where they lost to Portadown and Glenavon. So look, I think Portadown have actually got a decent record against Crusaders, but they're kind of a weird jumbly ball. I kind of expect this to be maybe a 1-1 0-0 where both sides are disappointed. Portadown are in a semi funk based on league and cup performances, and they'll be buoyed by their second half performance, but it's actually kind of goals is their issue, and they're always due maybe the odd one going in at the back. It's not going to be the same team with Offord not being in it, but it's probably the opposite of what I said last week. Maybe Portadown want to get out there, score early, and then keep being dangerous on the counter attack.
Yeah, it's one thing you can certainly guarantee with Niall Curry teams is they will give it a go, as I say. But I also think that he'll want them to be a bit more organized and a bit have a higher degree of concentration than maybe they had in um certain ways defensively against Linfield. Because yes, obviously, as I said, their Offord will not well is unlikely to be in the Crusaders team, highly unlikely. But that doesn't mean they don't pose a threat from if you give them space. So with it being at Seaview, I would say the more likely result will either be a draw or a one goal Crusaders win at best for them. But yeah, I think it's going to be like a 1-1 or a 0-0.
Crusaders, I expect them to sort of drift through the rest of the season. It's getting those men up top that's been the issue, and strangely their defense can turn up or they completely wilt. They'll probably not want to see James Teelan coming down the wings at them, but it's Port seem like a team lacking in confidence, and for a side that was second on Christmas Day, they kind of do need to start picking up points between now and the end of March, because as much it should be what they expected to be, but to be in the position they were only less than a month ago, I do think dropping out of the top six, and I know Ballymena have very much fallen that way. I think if Portadown do miss out in the top six, they've kind of let themselves down ever so slightly. Yes, based on expectations, it's still fantasy land, but you have to see what's in front of you, and it would be a bit of a tailing off of form if they can't get it done.
Now finds ways to get his team to pick up results and grind out results in the league when maybe you wouldn't expect them to. So I think like they're fourth now. In a couple of weeks, they could be back up to second again. Who knows? But they could also be as low as sort of seventh or eighth. That's how tight that is. I don't expect them to be sort of eighth, ninth, but then again, it's been a decent season. Then going by Portadown teams of old, it's been a decent season. Going by Portadown of recent seasons, they're massively overachieving. They are as overachieving as Dungannon were or have been overachieving. That it's the same sort of what do you call it? Same sort of level of overachievement.
Who would you put as your? Because a lot of people would have it between Niall Curry and Rodney McAree as manager of the year. I know there's plenty of people who go, whoever wins the league should be manager of the year. I get that, but for a lot of people, it's between Curry and Rodney. Even despite the big blue badge on your chest, trying to be more neutral in this discussion. Who do you feel the man should be collecting that award if you were giving it out today?
I've said it, I think, 2 or 3 times in this episode. I think that Dungannon have been the best footballing team in the league. However, I think that Portadown have picked up a lot of points and played a lot better. I mean, the thing is, right, with Portadown, they've had a lot of new players come in. So Niall's had to work quite quickly to get those players playing well and playing as a team. Rodney's had quite a few of the Dungannon players there for a number of seasons. So it's more of a culmination of a couple of seasons' work with a few extra players brought in here and there. I'm not really sure who would give it to. Probably just Rodney McAree, because, as I say, Dungannon have been playing better football.
That'll be one of many discussion points. You never know, we could even have that big discussion on the 21st of March if you're there. Kick a Match Live, we'll just have to see. David, thank you so much for jumping into the podcast. It's been what a season of ups and downs for Glenavon so far, and there is still plenty to go. For those who aren't already in your social media sphere or wants to be a part of it or add you to it, how can they do such a thing?
Generally, it's at wavy dot. You'll find me some way there, or you can follow Glenavon social media. I'm usually not too far away from that.
Tremendous. Until next time, David, good chatting to you. I will chat to you very, very soon.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me.
We are getting through these rightly, aren't we? Almost at the end of January. One more big, exciting week on the horizon. At least it's been fun. I'm glad that I'm not as clogged up as I was before. I'm glad that you've joined me again after such a stuffy little episode. If you have missed any of the big ones that I've done over the past few weeks, and I've done plenty. I did a big January transfer window preview. I did obviously the Boxing Day games. I did some of the games just before New Year's, as well as the Irish Cup 5th round. Lots of Irish League happenings. If it's went down, I've covered it on this podcast. If you are a new convert to the podcast, you might not know, you should follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and or Twitter. It's at Kicking Match on all of those accounts. That is, of course, the place to go if you want to find the link to get a ticket for the first ever Kicking Match live show. Lots of you there, really exciting. I enjoy getting a little notification say bing, new tickets sold, and little numbers increase. It's exciting. Looking forward to that big show coming down the pipe. But until next time, cheers for spending an hour and a half or so with me, and I will chat to you same time next week.